The Great Galactic Menagerie stretched across 12 levels of the massive space station orbiting Zentrix Prime. Every civilized species in the known galaxy contributed their most dangerous, most fascinating, and most terrifying creatures to this ultimate display of cosmic biodiversity. The facility served as both research center and tourist attraction, drawing millions of visitors annually who came to witness the universe's most incredible life forms safely contained behind energy barriers and force fields. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the main corridor with her family, their diplomatic immunity badges gleaming under the artificial lighting. Her husband, Dr. Michael Chen, carried their infant son while keeping one eye on their 6-year-old daughter Emma, who skipped ahead with boundless curiosity. The Chen family represented humanity's latest diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council, and this visit to the menagerie was meant to be a gesture of goodwill and cultural exchange. "Stay close, Emma," Sarah called out as her daughter pressed her face against the transparent aluminum viewing panels. Inside each enclosure, creatures from across the galaxy displayed behaviors that had evolved over millions of years. Some were beautiful, others bizarre, and many were deadly enough to eliminate entire civilizations if they ever escaped containment. The Zentari guide, a tall, crystalline being named Crystthth, gestured with 4 arms toward the various exhibits. These specimens represent the pinnacle of dangerous evolution from 17 different star systems. Each creature has been carefully studied and contained using the most advanced technology available to the Galactic Council. Emma stopped at an exhibit containing what looked like a flowing river of liquid silver. "What's that one do?" she asked, pointing at the metallic creature that seemed to pulse with inner light. "That is a mercurial wraith from the void reaches," Crystthth explained, his voice taking on a reverent tone. "It can phase through solid matter and drain the life force from any biological entity. 3 of our research teams were lost before we developed the quantum containment necessary to hold it." Dr. Chen adjusted his son in his arms and moved closer to his wife. "The safety protocols here must be incredible," he murmured. "Some of these things could probably take out a battleship." "Indeed," Crystthth agreed. "But even our most dangerous specimens pale in comparison to the crown jewel of our collection. The creature in the central containment chamber has never been successfully studied by any research team. It has killed every handler, researcher, and maintenance drone that has ever approached its enclosure." Ambassador Chen frowned. "Then, why keep it? Surely the risk outweighs any scientific benefit." The Zentari's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. "Because, honored ambassador, it represents the absolute pinnacle of lethal evolution. The Vorthak dragon is the only known survivor of its species, and it has single-handedly destroyed 17 research facilities, 4 military installations, and an entire moon colony before its capture. No weapon in our arsenal can penetrate its hide. No restraint can hold it for long. It exists in our central chamber because nothing else we have built can contain it, and we dare not transport it elsewhere." Emma had wandered ahead again, drawn by the sound of something large moving in the distance. The central area of the menagerie opened into a vast cylindrical chamber that stretched up through all 12 levels. In the center, suspended in a web of energy fields and containment beams, was something that defied easy description. The Vorthak dragon was enormous, easily the size of an earth blue whale, but its form was far more complex and alien. Its hide appeared to shift between deep purple and black, covered in scales that seemed to absorb light itself. 6 powerful limbs ended in claws that looked capable of tearing through starship hulls, and its elongated head featured rows of crystalline teeth and eyes that burned with an inner fire. Most disturbing of all were the massive wings, currently folded against its body, that appeared to be made of some kind of living metal. "By the void," Dr. Chen whispered as the family approached the central viewing platform. "It's actually beautiful in a terrifying way." The dragon hung motionless in its containment field, apparently sleeping or in some form of stasis. Around the circular viewing platform, dozens of alien tourists and researchers observed the creature through multiple layers of protective barriers. Warning signs in 17 different languages covered every surface, and armed security personnel stood at regular intervals. "The containment requires the full power output of 3 fusion reactors," Crystthth explained. "Even in its dormant state, the creature generates energy readings that our instruments cannot fully analyze. When it was first brought here, it destroyed the original containment facility simply by stretching its wings." Emma had moved to the front railing, standing on her tiptoes to get a better view. Her parents were engaged in technical discussions with their guide, and the other visitors were focused on their recording devices and data pads. No one noticed when the small human girl climbed onto the lower rail for a better vantage point. The most fascinating aspect, Crysthth continued, is that we have never observed it eat, drink, or eliminate waste. Some theorists believe it feeds on energy itself, possibly even drawing sustenance from the fear of nearby life forms. As if responding to the guide's words, one of the dragon's massive eyes suddenly opened. The burning orange orb focused immediately on the viewing platform, scanning across the assembled aliens with what seemed like intelligent assessment. Most of the tourists stepped back instinctively, even behind their multiple layers of protection. But Emma Chen, age 6 and, completely unaware of the cosmic significance of the moment, waved cheerfully at the ancient creature and called out, "Hi there, big guy. You're really pretty." The dragon's second eye snapped open, and its massive head turned with surprising grace to focus both burning orbs directly on the small human child. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, predator and innocent stared at each other across the barrier of energy and space that separated them. Then, something unprecedented happened. Something that would be analyzed, debated, and argued about for generations across the galaxy. The Vorthak dragon, the most lethal creature known to exist, slowly blinked both eyes in what any human would immediately recognize as a gentle acknowledgement. Emma giggled and waved again, completely delighted by the response. "Mama, look. The dragon likes me." Ambassador Chen turned just in time to see her daughter balanced precariously on the railing, waving enthusiastically at a creature that had single-handedly destroyed civilizations. Her diplomatic training warred with her maternal instincts as she moved quickly to lift Emma down from her perch. "Emma, honey, you need to stay back from the barriers," she said, her voice carefully controlled despite her racing heart. But the damage, if it could be called that, was already done. The dragon continued to watch the small human family with what appeared to be curious interest, its massive head tilting slightly as it observed their interactions. Other visitors began to notice the creature's unusual behavior, pointing and murmuring in their various languages. Crysthth's crystalline form had shifted to a pale, almost transparent hue. In 300 years of operation, the Vorthak has never shown interest in any visitor. It typically remains in dormancy unless physically threatened. "Maybe it's just curious about humans," Dr. Chen suggested, though his voice carried uncertainty. "We are a relatively new species to the galactic community." The guide's form continued to flicker between transparent and opaque. "Honored humans, I must inform you that the creature is now emitting energy patterns we have never recorded before. Our sensors indicate it has become fully alert and active, despite the maximum level sedative fields in its containment system." As if to emphasize the point, the dragon's massive form began to shift within its containment web. The movement was subtle but unmistakable, as the creature positioned itself to maintain visual contact with the viewing platform where the Chen family stood. Emma clapped her hands together delightedly. "He's moving. I think he wants to say hello properly." Ambassador Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's environmental systems. In her years of diplomatic service, she had learned to recognize moments when everything was about to change. Standing in the shadow of the galaxy's most dangerous predator, watching her daughter wave cheerfully at a creature that could destroy worlds, she realized they might have just stumbled into one of those moments. The Vorthak dragon continued to watch them, its burning eyes focused with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of space itself. And, in the depths of those alien orbs, something that might have been intelligence seemed to flicker and grow brighter. Something that recognized, perhaps for the first time in centuries, another being that looked at it without fear. The security alarms began wailing 3 minutes after Emma's first wave at the dragon. Red emergency lights bathed the central containment chamber as automated systems detected the unprecedented energy fluctuations emanating from the Vorthak's enclosure. The creature had not simply awakened from its dormant state, it had become more active than any recorded observation in the facility's history. "All visitors must evacuate to emergency stations immediately," announced the facility's AI in 17 languages simultaneously. "Code Orange protocols are now in effect." This is not a drill. Crysthth's crystalline form had gone completely transparent except for a faint blue outline, indicating extreme agitation in his species. "Honored Ambassador, your family must come with me immediately. The creature's energy output is approaching levels we have only seen during its most violent escape attempts." But, as the alien tourists and researchers hurried toward the exit portals, Emma Chen broke away from her parents and moved closer to the barrier. The 6-year-old girl pressed both hands against the energy shield, her small face tilted upward to meet the dragon's burning gaze.
Emma, no.
Dr. Chen lunged forward to grab his daughter, but Ambassador Chen caught his arm. Wait, she whispered, her diplomatic instincts overriding her fear.
Look at its body language. The Vortak dragon was indeed moving, but not with the aggressive postures described in the research files.
Its massive form seemed to be settling into a more comfortable position, and its great wings had spread slightly in what appeared to be a relaxed stance. Most remarkably, the creature had lowered its enormous head toward the viewing platform, bringing one burning eye to within mere meters of where Emma stood. "Hi, beautiful," Emma said softly, her voice carrying clearly in the now empty chamber.
Are you lonely in there? It looks pretty lonely. The dragon's response sent shockwaves through the facility's monitoring systems.
The creature's massive head moved in a careful, deliberate nod, and a sound emerged from its throat that was unlike anything in the research archives. It was not a roar or growl, but rather a deep, harmonic vibration that seemed almost melodic. "Impossible," breathed Crysthth, his form flickering rapidly between visible and transparent.
The creature has never vocalized except when attacking. Our xenobiologists concluded it was incapable of communication.
Emma giggled at the sound, pressing her face closer to the barrier.
You can sing. That's so pretty. Do you want to be friends? The dragon's response was immediate and extraordinary.
The creature carefully extended one massive forelimb, bringing a claw larger than Emma's entire body to rest gently against the energy barrier directly opposite her small hands. The barrier hummed with energy as it prevented physical contact, but the intent was unmistakable. "By all the stars," Ambassador Chen whispered, her trained eye recognizing a gesture of greeting when she saw one. "It's trying to touch her hand." Dr. Chen had his medical scanner active, taking readings of both his daughter and the creature beyond the barrier.
"Sarah, Emma's biochemistry is completely normal. No signs of pheromone influence, psychic manipulation, or any other form of coercion.
She's acting entirely of her own free will." The facility's emergency response team arrived in full combat armor, energy weapons charged and ready. Team leader Vexstar, a massive Krillian warrior, assessed the situation with practiced efficiency.
"Stand back from the barrier immediately. The creature is displaying unprecedented aggression patterns."
"Actually," Ambassador Chen said, stepping forward with the calm authority that had served her well in countless diplomatic crises, "I believe you're misreading the situation.
The creature is not displaying aggression. It's displaying curiosity and what appears to be affection." Vexstar's four eyes focused on the human diplomat with skepticism. "Ambassador, with respect, the Vortak dragon is incapable of affection.
It is a killing machine that has eliminated every life form it has encountered for over 3 centuries. Emma had grown bored with the adult conversation and returned her attention to the dragon.
Without warning, she began climbing the barrier structure, using the emergency handholds intended for maintenance access. Her small, nimble form moved quickly up the barrier framework before anyone could react.
Emma, both parents shouted simultaneously, but their daughter had already reached a maintenance platform that brought her level with the dragon's massive head. The creature watched her approach with what could only be described as careful attention. Its burning eyes tracked her movement, but its massive form remained completely still, as if it understood that any sudden motion might frighten the small human. "You're even prettier up close," Emma announced, settling herself comfortably on the platform with her legs dangling over the edge.
"But, you look really sad. Why are you sad?" The dragon's response sent every sensor in the facility into overdrive.
The creature's entire body language shifted, its great head tilting to one side in an unmistakably questioning gesture. The harmonic vocalizations resumed, but this time with a different tone, something that sounded almost like a lament. "It's trying to answer her," Dr. Chen said in amazement, his medical tricorder picking up complex brainwave patterns from the creature.
"The neural activity suggests higher cognitive function than we ever imagined possible."
Crysthth's form had stabilized into a deep blue hue, indicating intense concentration. The facility's xenopsychology department has been studying this creature for decades. Their conclusion was that it possessed only predatory instincts and basic survival responses.
This level of apparent emotional complexity contradicts everything we thought we knew. Emma had apparently decided that conversation at a distance was insufficient.
The platform she sat on was part of the maintenance system for the containment barriers, and it included emergency controls that could temporarily modify the energy fields for authorized personnel. The 6-year-old girl had watched her parents operate similar control systems throughout their journey across the galaxy, and her naturally curious nature had absorbed more than anyone realized. "Emma, don't touch anything," Ambassador Chen called out, but her daughter had already located what appeared to be a communication port in the barrier system.
"I just want to give him a hug," Emma announced cheerfully. "He looks like he really needs a hug." "Absolutely not," Vexstar roared, raising his energy weapon. "Stand down from the maintenance platform immediately."
But Emma had already activated the communication port, designed to allow researchers to send instruments and data collectors through the barrier. A small opening, barely large enough for a human child's arm, appeared in the energy field. The reaction was instantaneous and profound. The Vorthak dragon's massive head moved with incredible precision and gentleness, bringing its snout to within centimeters of the small opening. Up close, the creature's features were even more magnificent and alien. Its scales reflected light in patterns that seemed to shift like living aurora, and its burning eyes held depths that spoke of intelligence and possibly wisdom beyond human comprehension. "Hello there," Emma whispered, slowly extending her small hand through the opening.
"I'm Emma. What's your name?" The dragon's response was unlike anything witnessed in 3 centuries of galactic civilization.
The creature, whose very name struck fear into the hearts of species across 17 star systems, carefully and gently nuzzled the small human hand with the side of its massive snout. The contact lasted only a few seconds, but the gesture was unmistakable in its tenderness. Then, Emma Chen, 6 years old and completely unaware that she was making history, leaned forward and planted a gentle kiss on the dragon's snout. The silence that followed was absolute. Every alarm had stopped. Every warning system had gone quiet. The massive creature remained perfectly still, its burning eyes closed as if savoring a moment it had waited lifetimes to experience. "Remarkable," whispered Crysthth, his voice barely audible. "In all our observations, we never considered that the creature might be lonely." Emma pulled her hand back through the opening and settled back on the platform with a satisfied smile.
"He's not scary at all.
He's just really, really sad. I think he's been sad for a very long time." The dragon opened its eyes and looked at the small human child with an expression that no xenobiologist had ever documented. For just a moment, the burning orange orb seemed to hold something that looked remarkably like gratitude. And, in that moment, everything the galaxy thought it knew about monsters and humans began to change.
Within hours, footage of Emma's kiss had spread across the galactic communication networks faster than any news story in recorded history.
The image of a tiny human child tenderly kissing the snout of the universe's most feared predator triggered responses ranging from disbelief to outrage to scientific fascination across thousands of worlds. In the emergency conference chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from 47 species gathered to address what many considered a potential crisis. The holographic display showed the moment of contact in slow motion, analyzed from 17 different angles by the most advanced xenobiological computers in the galaxy. Council Prime Zethkri, an ancient Valdorian whose species had evolved beyond physical form eons ago, manifested his energy signature in the traditional golden spirals of deep concern.
This incident raises fundamental questions about both human judgment and the security protocols of the menagerie. How was a child of any species allowed to make physical contact with a Class X predator?
High Commander Breltak of the Krillian Military Consortium slammed all 4 of his armored fists on the conference table. The question is not how it happened, but what the human's true purpose was. No species approaches the Vorthak dragon without extensive preparation and protective equipment. This was either incredible stupidity or a carefully planned operation. Ambassador Chen sat calmly in the human delegation section, her diplomatic training allowing her to remain composed despite the accusations flying around the chamber. Beside her, Dr. Chen held their infant son while 6-year-old Emma played quietly with a puzzle toy, apparently unaware that she had become the center of galactic controversy. "Honored representatives," Ambassador Chen said when recognized by the Council Prime, "I understand the concern this incident has generated. However, I must emphasize that my daughter acted purely from childish curiosity and compassion. There was no human agenda or purpose beyond a young child's natural empathy for a creature she perceived as lonely." The Zentari delegation shifted to deep red crystalline formations, indicating skepticism.
"Ambassador Chen, your species has been members of the Galactic Council for less than 50 years.
The Vorthak dragon has been contained for over 3 centuries.
Are we to believe that a human child succeeded where our greatest xenobiologists and military specialists have failed simply through empathy?" Dr. Chen requested permission to address the assembly. Honored Council, as a xenobiologist myself, I've reviewed the facility's complete sensor logs from the incident. The data shows something remarkable. When my daughter approached, the creature's biorhythms shifted to patterns we've never seen before. Its neural activity increased dramatically, but not in the aggressive patterns associated with its previous violent episodes. The holographic display shifted to show complex brainwave analysis charts. Dr. Chen stood and gestured to the data patterns. These readings suggest the creature was experiencing what we might classify as positive emotional responses: curiosity, recognition, and possibly even joy. The Vorthak dragon was not merely tolerating my daughter's presence, it was actively engaging with her. Prime researcher KYTHLN of the Arcturian Science Collective activated her translation matrix with sharp clicks of disapproval. Dr. Chen, you are suggesting that a creature which has killed thousands of sentient beings across multiple star systems is capable of emotional bonding. This contradicts 3 centuries of scientific observation. Perhaps, Dr. Chen replied carefully, our previous observations were incomplete. We studied the dragon as a specimen, a threat to be contained. Emma approached it as simply another living being. The difference in response suggests the creature may be far more intelligent and emotionally complex than we realized. High Admiral Vextar materialized via quantum communication from the menagerie station, his massive Krillian form filling a significant portion of the holographic projection space. Council members, I must report additional developments since the initial incident. The dragon's behavior has continued to evolve in unprecedented ways. The assembly fell silent as the Admiral's report began. Following the child's departure, the creature has ceased all dormancy periods. It remains fully alert and active, but not in an aggressive state. More disturbing, it has begun vocalizing continuously, producing harmonic patterns that our linguistic analysis computers cannot decode. Most significantly, it has repeatedly approached the section of the barrier where the contact occurred, and appears to be waiting. Ambassador Chen felt her heart skip. Waiting for what, Admiral? Based on behavioral analysis, the creature appears to be waiting for the child's return. The implications of this statement sent ripples of concern throughout the assembly. Council Prime Zethkri's energy pattern shifted to the deep purple spirals that indicated grave deliberation. This suggests the creature has formed what humans might term an emotional attachment to the child. Such a development could have enormous implications for containment security. Emma looked up from her puzzle toy, apparently recognizing that the adults were talking about her. Is the pretty dragon okay? I hope he's not lonely anymore. The innocence in the child's voice created an uncomfortable silence among beings who had spent their careers analyzing threats and calculating strategic advantages. Here was a 6-year-old human child expressing concern for a creature that had destroyed entire civilizations. Chief Military Strategist Kel Nash of the Rigelian Defense Corps activated his communication console with typical military precision. The tactical implications cannot be ignored. If humans possess some unique ability to influence or control the Vorthak dragon, this represents a significant shift in galactic power dynamics. We must consider the possibility that this was a demonstration of human capabilities. With respect, Ambassador Chen said, standing to address the assembly directly, that suggestion reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. My daughter did not seek to control or influence anything. She saw a living being that appeared sad and lonely, and she responded with the natural compassion that children of our species display toward all creatures. High Commander Breltak's eyes glowed with skeptical intensity. Ambassador, your species has a documented history of forming emotional bonds with dangerous predators on your home world. You domesticated wolves, bears, and numerous other creatures that posed significant threats. How do we know this is not another example of human predator manipulation? Dr. Chen stood beside his wife, choosing his words carefully. Commander, there is indeed a difference in how humans perceive predators compared to many other species. We evolved alongside dangerous creatures and learned to coexist with them. But this was not manipulation. This was recognition. Recognition of what? Demanded Prime Researcher KYTHLN. Emma had grown bored with her puzzle and was now paying attention to the adult conversation. He's not a monster, she said clearly, her young voice carrying easily through the chamber's audio systems. He's just really old and really sad and nobody ever talks to him nice. The simplicity of the statement struck the assembly like a physical blow.
Here was a child reducing their complex xenobiological and strategic concerns to the most basic elements of social interaction. Council Prime Zethkri's energy pattern shifted to contemplative silver spirals.
Child Emma, what makes you believe the creature is sad? Emma considered the question with the seriousness that children bring to important matters. His eyes. They look like my grandpa's eyes did when Grandma died.
Like he lost somebody really important and nobody understands how much it hurts.
The chamber fell completely silent as the implications of the child's observation sank in.
For 3 centuries, the galaxy's greatest minds had studied the Vorthak dragon as a specimen, a threat, a puzzle to be solved. Not one had considered that it might be a grieving individual. Ambassador Chen felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders as she realized where this conversation was heading. Honored Council, I believe my daughter may have identified something we all missed. What if the dragon's violent behavior wasn't predatory aggression, but the response of an intelligent being driven to desperation by isolation and grief? High Admiral Vextar's image flickered as he transmitted additional data from the menagerie. Council members, our historical analysis teams have been reviewing the dragon's capture records. The creature was found in the ruins of what appeared to be a massive structure on a dead world in the Vorthak system. Our military focused on capture and containment, but we never investigated the possibility that the structure might have been its home, or that there might have been others of its kind.
The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly.
Chief Military Strategist Cal Nash immediately activated his combat protocols.
Are you suggesting we captured the sole survivor of a species genocide? The military implications alone. The moral implications are far greater, Ambassador Chen interrupted, her diplomatic composure finally showing cracks.
If this creature is indeed the last of its kind, then, for 3 centuries we have been torturing a sentient being whose only crime was surviving the destruction of its entire civilization. Emma had been listening carefully to the adult conversation, and now she spoke with the devastating honesty that only children possess.
That's really mean. If my whole family died and I was all alone, I think I would be really angry too. Maybe he's only scary because everybody's scary to him first.
The 6-year-old human child had just provided a psychological profile that 3 centuries of advanced xenobiological research had failed to achieve. And, in that moment, every representative in the Galactic Council realized that everything they thought they knew about the universe's most dangerous creature might be completely wrong. Against all protests from the Galactic Council's security apparatus, Ambassador Chen had negotiated permission for Emma to return to the menagerie under carefully controlled conditions. The decision came after 3 days of heated debate, countless security assessments, and the dragon's increasingly distressed behavior as it continued waiting by the barrier where Emma had first touched it. Dr. Chen had spent those 3 days studying every piece of historical data about the Vorthak system and the creature's capture. What he discovered in the archived military reports sent chills through the human delegation and eventually forced the council to reconsider everything they thought they knew about their most dangerous prisoner. The military expedition found the dragon in what they described as a crystalline cathedral complex, Dr. Chen reported to the emergency xenobiology session. The structure was partially destroyed, but architectural analysis suggests it was designed for beings of the dragon's size and physical configuration. More significantly, they found evidence of at least 50 other life forms of similar mass and energy signatures.
Prime researcher KYTHLN's translation matrix clicked rapidly with agitation. Dr. Chen, are you suggesting the Vorthak system contained an entire civilization of these creatures?
I'm suggesting more than that, Dr. Chen replied, activating a holographic display of the archived archaeological scans. The crystal formations weren't natural. They were grown, shaped, and arranged in patterns that suggest advanced artistic and, possibly religious significance. The Vorthak dragons weren't just intelligent, they were a sophisticated civilization.
High Admiral Vextar's quantum-transmitted image focused intently on the display.
The military reports make no mention of civilization. They describe a hostile environment containing extremely dangerous predators. The military reports were filed by Commander Thakros of the Hegemony Fleet, Ambassador Chen added quietly. The same Commander Thakros who was later court-martialed for unauthorized planetary bombardment and civilian genocide in the Deltari system. His expedition to Vorthak occurred during the period when the hegemony was expanding aggressively into uncharted territories. The implications hung in the chamber like a toxic cloud. Council Prime Zethkri's energy pattern shifted through several color spectrums before settling into the pale gold of profound regret.
Ambassador Chen, Are you suggesting that our capture of the Vorthak dragon was actually the result of a military campaign that destroyed its entire species? The evidence strongly suggests that possibility, Dr. Chen confirmed. The dragon wasn't found on a dead world. It was found on a world that had been recently killed, with blast patterns consistent with orbital bombardment. If I'm correct, we haven't been containing a monster for 3 centuries. We've been holding the sole survivor of a genocide. Emma had been allowed to listen to the adult discussions about her new friend, though she didn't understand all the complicated words. What she did understand was that the pretty dragon was all alone because bad people had hurt his family. This made her angry in the way that only 6-year-old children can be angry about unfairness. That's not fair, she declared with absolute moral certainty. You should let him go. High Commander Breltak's 4 eyes focused on the human child with something between amusement and exasperation. Child, the creature has killed thousands of sentient beings. It cannot simply be released. Emma crossed her arms and fixed the massive Krillian warrior with a stare that would have made her human teachers proud. Maybe he killed people because people killed his family first. If somebody hurt my mama and daddy and baby brother, I would want to fight them too. The uncomfortable silence that followed was broken by High Admiral Vextar's voice from the menagerie station. Council members, the child's assessment may not be entirely inaccurate. We've completed a detailed analysis of the dragon's violent incidents over the past 3 centuries. In every case, the creature was either being transported, subjected to research procedures, or approached by large groups of armed personnel. It has never initiated aggression against unarmed individuals or single persons. Ambassador Chen felt pieces of a terrible puzzle clicking into place. Admiral, what about maintenance workers or solitary researchers? In over 300 years of containment, the dragon has never harmed a single maintenance worker, food service drone, or individual researcher who approached its enclosure alone and unarmed. The violent incidents occurred only when it perceived organized threat or was being subjected to invasive procedures. Emma nodded emphatically. See? He's not mean. He's just scared. Scared people fight when they think you're going to hurt them. The 6-year-old's psychological assessment was proving more accurate than centuries of military and scientific analysis. Dr. Chen activated his personal datapad and began reviewing the incident reports with this new perspective. If we categorize the dragon's violent responses as defensive rather than aggressive, he said slowly, the pattern becomes clear. This creature has been reacting to perceived threats, not initiating predatory attacks. Everything we interpreted as monstrous behavior was actually the response of an intelligent being defending itself against what it saw as continued assault. Prime researcher KYTHLN's translation matrix produced a sound that might have been shame. We have been studying a grieving survivor who believes we are its captors and torturers. No wonder our research teams met with hostile responses. The holographic communication system activated to show the dragon's current status at the menagerie. The massive creature remained positioned by the barrier where Emma had touched it, but its posture had changed dramatically since the initial incident. Instead of the rigid tension of a caged predator, it displayed the patient waiting of someone expecting a friend's return. Look at its body language now, Dr. Chen pointed out. Compare that to the archived footage from previous decades. The difference is striking. This creature has hope for the first time in centuries, and it's waiting for the one being who showed it kindness. Council Prime Zethkri's energy pattern had stabilized into the deep blue of careful consideration. The ethical implications are staggering. If this analysis is correct, we have been committing an unconscionable crime against a sentient being for 300 years. Emma had been following the conversation as best she could, and she understood that the adults were finally beginning to see what had been obvious to her from the beginning. Can I go see him now? I promised I would come back, and promises are important. The request triggered another round of security discussions, but Ambassador Chen raised her hand for silence. Honored Council, my daughter made a promise to a being who has been betrayed by our entire civilization for centuries. I think it's time we allowed humans to keep their word. High Admiral Vextar's image showed the Krillian warrior in what might have been military respect. The containment systems have been modified to allow for supervised contact. The dragon has remained completely passive since the initial incident, showing no aggressive behaviors or stress indicators. Dr. Chen stood, holding his son while placing a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. I'll accompany my daughter as both father and xenobiologist.
If this creature is indeed what we now believe it to be, then, this contact may be the first step toward healing 3 centuries of injustice. The transport to the menagerie station took 6 hours, during which Emma chattered excitedly about seeing her dragon friend again. She had spent the journey drawing pictures of herself and the dragon playing together, images that struck every adult who saw them with their innocent assumption that friendship was possible between species. When the Chen family arrived at the central containment chamber, they found a scene that would have been impossible just days earlier. The dragon waited exactly where Emma had left it, its massive form positioned to watch the entrance for her return. When the 6-year-old girl appeared on the viewing platform, the creature's burning eyes brightened with unmistakable joy. "Hi, beautiful," Emma called out cheerfully. "I'm back, just like I promised." The dragon's response sent every sensor in the facility into overdrive once again, but this time the readings showed nothing but positive emotional indicators. The creature's harmonic vocalizations filled the chamber with sounds that could only be described as welcoming songs. Emma moved immediately to the maintenance platform where she had made first contact, but this time the facility had prepared proper communication systems. A secured interaction portal had been installed, allowing for safe contact while maintaining containment protocols. "I brought you something," Emma announced, pulling a small object from her pocket. It was a simple carved wooden horse, a toy her grandfather had made for her years earlier. "Grandpa made this for me before he died. He said it would keep me company when I was lonely. I think you need it more than I do." She extended the small wooden figure through the portal, offering it to the massive creature beyond the barrier. The dragon's response was extraordinary in its gentleness. One enormous claw, capable of tearing through starship hulls, carefully and delicately accepted the tiny gift. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the last survivor of an ancient civilization held a simple wooden toy carved by human hands on a distant world. The contrast should have been absurd, but instead it was deeply moving. The dragon carefully cradled the small gift against its chest and began to vocalize again, but this time the sounds were different. Complex, structured, and unmistakably linguistic. The creature was speaking. "It's trying to say thank you," Emma declared with absolute certainty. "And I think it's telling me its name." Dr. Chen activated his recording equipment, capturing sounds that would revolutionize xenolinguistics. "Emma, what do you think its name is?" Emma listened carefully to the harmonic patterns, her young mind processing the alien sounds with the natural language acquisition abilities that children possess. I think his name is HFY. And he's very, very old, and he's been waiting a really long time for someone to be nice to him." As the dragon continued its complex vocalizations, now clearly attempting communication rather than mere sound, Ambassador Chen realized that her daughter had done far more than make friends with a monster. Emma had opened the door to the first real conversation between humans and the last survivor of an ancient civilization. And, through that door, 3 centuries of misunderstanding were finally beginning to heal. 6 months after Emma's first kiss changed galactic history, the menagerie station had been transformed from a prison into something unprecedented, the first interspecies cultural exchange center between humans and the last Vorthak dragon. The conversion had required approval from the Galactic Council, massive infrastructure changes, and a complete reimagining of everything they thought they knew about dangerous alien life forms. THYSS era no longer lived in containment. The energy barriers had been replaced with voluntary habitat boundaries, and the massive crystalline structures that now filled the central chamber were grown according to architectural patterns recovered from the ruins of his homeworld. For the first time in 3 centuries, the ancient dragon had a home that honored his species' aesthetic traditions. Emma visited every day that diplomatic schedules allowed, and their friendship had blossomed into something that xenolinguists across the galaxy studied with fascination. Through patient communication, THYSS era had begun sharing the history, culture, and knowledge of his extinct civilization. The revelations were staggering. The Vorthak were not merely intelligent, Dr. Chen reported to the latest council session. They were philosophers, artists, and scientists whose understanding of energy manipulation far exceeded our current capabilities. THYSS era has indicated that his people's crystal-growing technology could solve several of our greatest engineering challenges. Council Prime Zethkri's energy pattern displayed the warm gold spirals of satisfaction. Dr. Chen, your preliminary reports suggest that the Vorthak civilization achieves technological integration with biological systems that we can barely comprehend. The medical applications alone could revolutionize healthcare across hundreds of species.
Ambassador Chen stood beside the holographic projection that showed Emma and THYSSera in their daily communication session.
The 6-year-old girl had become remarkably fluent in the dragon's harmonic language, often serving as translator when the adults needed clarification on technical concepts. The most remarkable aspect, Ambassador Chen said, is not what THYSSera can teach us technologically, but what this entire experience has revealed about the nature of intelligence and empathy across species barriers. My daughter succeeded where our greatest minds failed, not because she was smarter, but because she approached without prejudice. High Commander Breltak, whose military mindset had been thoroughly challenged by recent events, activated his communication console with unusual humility.
Ambassador Chen, I must formally apologize for my initial suspicions about human motives.
The military applications of Vorthack technology could indeed provide significant advantages, but THYSSera has made it clear that such knowledge will only be shared with species that demonstrate peaceful intentions.
Emma's voice carried clearly through the communication link from the menagerie station.
THYSSera says his people used to help other species learn about energy and crystals, but only if they promised to use it to help people, not hurt them. He says humans are good at promises because we keep them even when it's hard.
The implications of this statement weren't lost on the council members.
The Vorthack had apparently been a mentor species, sharing advanced technology with younger civilizations under careful ethical guidelines. The destruction of their homeworld had eliminated not just a species, but an entire tradition of interstellar guidance and technological development.
Prime researcher KYTHLN's translation matrix produced soft harmonics that indicated deep respect. Young Emma, does THYSSera remember other species that his people helped in the past? Emma's response came after a brief conversation in the complex harmonic language she had learned.
He says there were lots of different people who came to learn. Some had blue skin and floaty bits like jelly. Some were really tall and made of rock. Some looked like big cats, but they could fly. He says they were all nice because his people only helped nice ones. Dr. Chen's xenobiological databases immediately began cross-referencing known species characteristics with Emma's descriptions.
If THYSSera's memories are accurate, the Vorthack may have influenced the technological development of dozens of current galactic civilizations.
Species we thought developed independently may actually have been guided by Vorthack mentorship.
High Admiral Vextar's quantum-transmitted image showed the Krillian warrior in a posture of military attention.
Council members, this information fundamentally changes our understanding of galactic development patterns.
If the Vorthack were indeed mentor-teachers to multiple species, then their extinction represents a catastrophic loss to our collective advancement. THYSSera's harmonic voice could be heard through the communication link, speaking directly to the assembled council through Emma's translation. He says he wants everyone to know that his people never blamed all the galaxy people for what the bad soldiers did. He says his people understood that most beings are good, and that the bad ones don't represent everybody. Here was a being who had suffered the genocide of his entire species, followed by 3 centuries of imprisonment, offering absolution to the very civilizations responsible for his suffering. Council Prime Zethkri's energy pattern shifted through multiple color spectrums before settling into the rare platinum spirals reserved for moments of historical significance. THYSSera of the Vorthack, through young Emma's translation, the Galactic Council formally requests your forgiveness for the crimes committed against your people and the injustices you have endured. Emma listened carefully to THYSSera's response, her young face serious as she processed the complex concepts. He says forgiveness was already given a long time ago, because holding angry feelings hurts the person who has them more than anybody else. But, he says thank you for asking, because asking is important when you want to be friends.
Ambassador Chen felt tears gathering in her eyes as she realized the profound wisdom her 6-year-old daughter was casually translating from an ancient alien philosopher.
THYSSera, through my daughter, humanity wishes to formally propose a new relationship.
Not as captors and prisoner, but as students and teacher, if you are willing. The dragon's response was immediate and warm, his harmonic vocalizations carrying emotional undertones that needed no translation. Emma clapped her hands together excitedly as she listened.
He says yes.
He says he's been lonely for so long, but now he has friends who want to learn, and learning together is what makes life happy. Chief Military Strategist Kel Nash, whose entire worldview had been challenged by recent events, spoke with uncharacteristic humility.
Young Emma, does THYSSera believe that other species can learn to communicate as you have? Emma considered this question seriously, consulting with THYSSera in their shared harmonic language.
He says anybody can learn if they really want to, but
it's easier for kids because kids don't think things are impossible before they try them. He says adults sometimes make things too complicated when they're really simple. The truth of this observation resonated throughout the council chamber. Emma's success hadn't come from superior technology, advanced training, or special equipment. It had come from approaching a lonely being with nothing more than kindness and the assumption that friendship was possible. "We are establishing the Vorthak Cultural Exchange Program," Council Prime Zethkri announced formally. Young beings from multiple species will have the opportunity to learn from THYSS era, with the goal of preserving and sharing the knowledge of his people while fostering the kind of interspecies understanding that Emma has demonstrated. High Admiral Vextar's image showed the warrior in an unprecedented gesture of respect toward the small human child. "Emma of Earth, you have accomplished what our greatest military minds could not. You have turned our most feared enemy into our most valued teacher." Emma giggled at the formal tone, responding with the casual confidence that had made all of this possible. He was never really an enemy. He was just sad and nobody knew how to help him feel better. Sometimes helping is really easy if you just try to be nice. The 6-year-old human child had reduced centuries of xenobiological complexity, military strategy, and diplomatic theory to its essential truth: kindness creates understanding, and understanding makes friendship possible. As the council session concluded and Emma returned to her daily lessons with THYSS era, the galaxy began adapting to a new reality. Humanity's gift to the galactic community wasn't advanced technology, military prowess, or scientific breakthrough. It was something far more valuable and rare: the ability to see past fear and prejudice, to recognize the individual worth of every living being. The little girl who had kissed a dragon's snout had awakened the galaxy to possibilities that none of them had ever imagined. And, in the crystalline chambers where an ancient being taught eager young students from dozens of worlds, the future was being shaped by the simple recognition that every creature, no matter how fearsome it might appear, deserves to be treated with dignity and compassion. Emma's kiss had done more than comfort a lonely dragon. It had reminded an entire galaxy what it meant to be truly civilized.